While we await more clarity on the Harris-Walz-China policies, my next guest says there are a few differences so far between Democrats and Republicans, at least when it comes to fiscal and monetary policies, with both sides proposing stimulative measures that would drive up demand while implicitly urging the Fed to stay loose. Joining me now is Jerry Seib, former executive Washington editor of the Wall Street Journal, now a visiting fellow at the Dole Institute of Politics. Jerry, it's great to have you back. Welcome.
Thanks, Kelly. Good to see you again.
And by the way, it's great to have Evan home, is it not?
It is awesome. Yeah, it's a huge relief to everybody in the Wall Street Journal family and to everybody. So we're grateful for the help of lots of people, Biden administration in particular, and lots of fans of Evan Gershkovich who pulled all the way for a year plus to get him home.
Indeed. And as I think about that, I'm reminded of the story over the past 24 hours about the Biden administration and what is happening with these kind of nuclear plans that would acknowledge kind of both Russia, which we're implicitly talking about in Evan's situation, China, which we were just discussing, and Iran. How should we be thinking about these global affairs right now?
Well, this is the real new global order that's possibly taking shape, and it's really scary. I mean, who would have thought that you would have had to worry about a nuclear alliance effectively involving China, which has got a building nuclear arsenal, Russia, and Iran. It's not there now, and the differences between Russia and China are still real. Iran does not have a nuclear arsenal. But when you're thinking long term, you now have to take into account such a possibility. Just was unthinkable 10 years ago. That just tells you how the world is dividing up into pro-Western, anti-Western camps in an entirely new way, and it's going to color lots of issues, including the nuclear one.
How would each party tackle this issue, do you think? What would the Republicans most likely want to do about it? What might the Democrats under Harris and Walz want to do?
Well, it's a tricky question because, you know, the Republican view on Iran is very clear. Let's continue to keep the pressure on. Let's move as far away from the old Obama nuclear deal with Iran as humanly possible and hope that pressure works to change behavior and, without saying so, change the regime in Iran. Democrats have a trickier equation when it comes to Iran because they have thought that engagement might help curtail some of the excesses of the Iranian administration. Would a Harris-Walz administration go back down that road? It's hard to say. You know, I think both sides agree the time for pressure on China is here. There's not a lot of light between the two parties on that front. But when it comes to Russia, again, you have real differences. You know, Vladimir Putin is not Donald Trump's friend necessarily, but he wants to have a good relationship. He makes that very clear. Not at all clear the Democrats want to go down that path. So what's the strategy for containing Russia? Not clear. And
also, it's expensive to have to be armored and ready to deal with this new axis that you've described. And in the 90s, when we were reducing the deficit, part of doing so was this peace dividend post-Cold War and post-Berlin Wall that we were able to use to kind of bring the budget back into balance. And now, as everybody is pointing out, if you can't cut defense, you can't cut make any real cuts to entitlement programs, you'd have to cut spending by 35% or raise revenues more than that in order to bring things into balance. And yesterday, we were talking to David Zervos. He said, I'm not even sure that the markets care. He pointed to Japan, said they have 250% debt to GDP. They have the BOJ just buying up a ton of the debt. And, you know, so should we worry about cutting back on some of these budgetary items, which are all, I think people would agree, pretty important, or not?
Well, you've gone to a really important point and an intriguing one about this entire campaign, which is the two words you don't hear at either convention, really, or out on the trail are deficit and debt. And yes, it's true, the markets don't seem to care. The markets don't care until they do. And when they do care, it's probably too late to really fix the problem. You know, I think, and I've written that, you know, there's a great long-term danger lurking here. There's a debate about when that point of crisis might arrive, but it's out there somewhere. And it's really striking that neither party is interested in talking about the deficit or the debt, even when it comes to attacking the other side for having increased the deficit. You know, the Democrats made some noises at their convention this week about the Trump record of having increased the national debt while he was in charge on his watch. But that hasn't been a big point of view because I don't think that the Democrats want to talk very much about doing something on that front either, because as you suggest, the two big places to go are defense spending and even more so entitlement spending, Social Security, Medicare. Neither party wants to touch that. They're in populist mode right now. That's true of the Republicans and it's true of the Democrats. And as part of that populist mode, they're basically saying hands off of entitlements. This is a stark contrast, particularly for Republicans, who just 8 years ago were talking about doing something to make the Social Security and Medicare systems more solvent for the long term. Not now.
Romney Ryan feels like a very distant memory, doesn't it? Jerry, thanks for your time today. We really appreciate it.